Hi, friends. It's Cheryl from Tutoring with Cheryl and Tech Coach for Tutors. And I'm just hopping on this morning to talk to you a little bit about summer slide and why that might be important for your child and how to prevent it. I know that sounds crazy, summer slide. Some people have never heard that before. If you're an educator, I'm sure you've heard it. So, this is maybe for the parents and especially younger parents. I think we go into our child's educational journey thinking, well, the school's going to handle everything. And while I would love to say that every school has that intention, I mean, we just do. But the reality of that is that it doesn't always happen. And that is no fault of anybody's. We have to remember class sizes are large. There's a lot of bodies in the classroom. Teachers are working hard every single day. I know I was out there. I was in the trenches. I totally get it. So there's no blame here. I'm just simply talking about how we can utilize our time maybe a little bit better during those summer months when our students, our children are home with us, and to maybe reflect and think, what could I be doing a little bit differently? So this is not a, he said, she said thing. This is a strictly informational conversation about it and things that you can do. So summer slide refers to the tendency of students to kind of lose what they've learned during the course of their school year while they're over, hanging out at home during the summer. And I'm going to turn my phone off. I forgot to do that. Okay, so there we go. So what happens is our kids come home. They either have a babysitter or they're going to daycare, or they're old enough to stay at home on their own, which is completely fine because, once they're to that particular age, then yes, we absolutely do that. And then we might say, hey, don't forget to pick up a book and read. Or you might take them to the library and they pick up the book, and then we assume that they're reading it. And then we find out later on that they didn't read it. And we're like, wait a minute, I took you to the library. I did all these things for you. And then we didn't get the results that we actually wanted. And in the day and age that we're in right now, there is a lot of technology. I mean, I'm on my technology all the time, on my phone, on my tablet, on my computer. So I totally understand this battle. But sometimes we just have to turn the technology off for a while and just say, okay, we have an hour with no technology. During this hour time, we're going to do these things. Okay. So I'm going to give you 5 things that you can do over this summer that might actually help your child prevent learning loss so that when they go back into the classroom and they have those initial assessments, because I'm not just talking to elementary. I'm talking to junior high and high school parents as well. But the elementary, at least in the United States, most of the schools and the children that I've worked with nationally, this is kind of the trend. They go back to school and they have their assessments. So they'll do a reading assessment like words per minute or a fluency type thing. And then they'll do some sort of a comprehension assessment. And so what ends up happening is they were at this level at the end of the year because they worked really, really hard all year long. And then they, boom, come back and they're down a level, 2, sometimes 3 levels. And then everybody's going, wait a minute, where did all that hard work go? So we still have to support that over the summer. I always like to equate this as somebody who kind of battles some sort of an illness, like being overweight. Okay, that's me. So I'm always like, oh, I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to be able to keep this weight off. And then I go on vacation and I come back and I look at the scale and I'm like, what just happened here? So I didn't stick to my plan, not through calorie restriction, but maybe through like exercise or drinking enough water or making better choices when I'm out at the restaurant or whatever that happens to be. And so I still needed support while I was on my vacation. So the same can be true for our children as they're learning these skills. And so it is a real thing. I taught in the classroom for many, many years, over 30 years. Now I'm in my 34th year of education as a private tutor, and I haven't privately tutored for 34 years, but 4 years as a tutor on top of my 32 years of instruction, but 34 years altogether. You do the math. I'll let you do the addition and subtraction. So what we want to do is we want to encourage reading. And I'm going to go back to that example. I took you to the library. Why didn't you read those books? So what can you do to support your child to encourage reading? And really, depending on the age level of your child, is going to depend on the amount of support that they need. Okay. So let's do a few examples here. If I take my kindergarten student child, first, second grade child to the library, some of them are going to be able to read independently. Absolutely. Many are not quite there yet. So you can sit down and you can read with your child. You can absolutely do that. But then you need to look at your calendar, or at least your daily schedule, and figure out when you're going to do that. Because many of you are working full time. And I know, because I've been there, and you're thinking, oh, I'll do it in 10 more minutes. I'll do it in another half hour. I'll do it in 45 more minutes. Pretty soon it's bedtime and you're putting your kids to bed, and you're like, well, wait, where's the books? Oh, shoot, I'll do it tomorrow. And then it's the next day, and then it's the next day, and then it's the next day. And pretty soon nothing's actually happened. So don't panic. Do not panic. It's going to be okay. Because what you can do is you can literally take your phone, put a task or name a time where you're going to set aside 10 or 15 minutes just to sit down on the couch and read. You don't even have to read the whole book. Read a page or two, talk about it. And then look at the pictures, look at the characters, look at the things that are happening. Choose a word or two and talk about it. And honestly, that tiny little bit that you do is going to really support your child. Okay. So encourage reading and then read along with them. And then, absolutely make a little corner in the house, a little reading nook, make it super comfy, have a fun little light in the corner, throw some books in a basket, or just say, hey, depending on the age of your kids, hey guys, we're going to turn off all the stuff right now. We're just going to have, 15 minutes of reading time. Grab a book. I don't care if you're engaged in the book or not, like pick it up, open it to the middle even, and just read. And then let's come back and tell each other something interesting that we found. What a great activity for the whole family. If I could have gotten my husband to do that, wow, that would have been that would have been amazing. He reads and he falls asleep, but sorry, Jay. Anyway, so just really encourage your child to read regularly over the summer. And then, those trips to the library are really important. I live in a rural community, so I can go to several different libraries. There's something unique about each library. So one library might have a Lego table. Another library might have the books set out for the kids to walk along and look at. Another library might be offering summer reading programs. Really look into that. And then for your older students, if you've got 6th, 7th, 8th graders, even older 5th graders, maybe they don't want to go to those things, but take them to the library. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting an audiobook. I got to tell you, I love listening to audiobooks. And a suggestion I give to many of my parents is look for a book that also has the audio that goes with it. And then the kids can follow along. It's like that old time. Okay, I'm really going to show how old I am. Of course, I already revealed that to you. But when I was in school, they give us these little books and the tape recorder. And so you'd be sitting there, and as soon as you heard the little ding, you turn the page. I don't think they have anything like that anymore. But I mean, that encouraged me to stay focused and, to read. And because I was a struggling reader, I'm really coming at this from a very compassionate point of view because I was there and I totally get it. Okay. Number 2, you can enroll your child in educational programs. So I think you should look for summer camps, workshops, different things that they can go to. If you live in a city, you are so fortunate to have all of those opportunities just readily available to you. Those of us that live in a rural area, it's a little bit harder to find those opportunities. So whether they're in person or they're virtual, look for them because they might be perfect opportunities for your child to engage with other learners and to also expand their background knowledge. Background knowledge is so important. I know that as a school teacher, I could always tell the families who traveled. They traveled. I can still see that in my private practice as a reading tutor today. The kids that are able to really read and connect with books have had lots of opportunities to go places. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with doing the weekly Walmart run, Target run, and going to your local park. If that is your little area, that's what you do, that's great. But then think of ways of building in background knowledge. And whether it's trying new recipes and talking about where these recipes come from, or whether it is having somebody, another family, come over and talking about family traditions or something like that. Just really beefing up that background knowledge so that when they're reading stories about different cultures and they're having to write about it, they have something to fall back on. I know that traveling, our family, my husband farms. So, hey, it rained a lot. We're going to go. We have like 12 hours to pack and get in the car. We never had a plan, but we would get in the car and we would go. And I don't know if that was torture for my children or not. Sometimes I was like, what are we doing? But we had great times, and they learned from those experiences. And so just really think about those educational opportunities. Travel is not on this list that I generated, but definitely finding time to take, even if it's just a staycation in your local community. What can you do? Can you find something that you haven't experienced and go and check it out? I live near the Omaha metropolitan area. I'm about an hour away. And I keep telling my husband, we need to go to Boys Town. I used to go to Boys Town all of the time with my family, or excuse me, with my students. And I've always wanted to take my family there. And so that's actually a bucket list thing that I want to do with my family. Going to museums, going to, different garden areas, spending time outside, traveling. Okay, so I kind of digressed, but you can create your own educational programs. Okay, a couple of other things, and I'm going to mark these off so that I don't get lost in my conversation because I have a tendency to do that. Okay, that traveling and that spontaneity that I was kind of talking to you about really lends itself to the third thing on the list. Let me number these so that I don't get lost as well, because I just took some notes. Okay, so the third thing on the list is to incorporate learning in daily activities. Just like I was saying, inviting those people over, having those meals. I know that when our kids were a little bit younger, but they weren't like super little, but they were a little bit younger, we were looking for some things to do. So with our friends, we were like, hey, let's try some cultural experiences. So let's do, instead of having like the traditional Italian night or taco night or whatever, we're like, let's do something different. So we'd pick a place in the world, and then everybody would find a recipe or something from that era, or I'm sorry, that location. And then we would meet together and enjoy the meal. And so, or you can play a game from that country. If you can't travel, this is a way to do it. I was even thinking, some experiences that my children and now my granddaughter gets to experience with me is cooking. And my daughter does a great job of cooking with my granddaughter. Getting them involved, the cutting, the measuring, the reading of the recipe. Even if they're non-readers, you can read it and say, now what's the next step? What do we have to add? And they might say, we have to add the oatmeal or whatever. And so that's great for short-term memory. It's great for communication skills. It's great for literacy. They're looking at it. They're learning the difference between numbers and letters. They're learning sequencing, the steps in action. So that's really important. Some other things. I have these. There's actually over there on my shelf. I should have grabbed them. I bought some bingo cards. They're amazing. They're these little slide things. And when my granddaughter comes, we try to go outside for at least one nature walk every single time she comes. And I'll say, well, which bingo card do you want? And she always remembers the first time we went outside, because we immediately walked out the door. A little sweat bee landed underneath her underarm, and she went like this, and she got stung. So she remembers this. It's very sad that happened, but bee was one of our things. So after, she got calmed down, we treated the bee sting. And the next day we went out, she stayed away from the flowers outside the door. But we were looking for all of those things. Very sad moment, but still an educational one. Don't let the bee sting happen to you. So encourage going outside, looking at plant growth, looking at animal behaviors, thinking about their writing skills. If they're really young, they can draw a picture about an event that happened and then tell you about it. Or you can, they can draw the picture and then you can write about it on top. Or if they're a little bit older, give them a blank journal and say, hey, write about your day. During that no technology time, maybe one day's a reading time, another day's a walking time or biking time. Come back and write about your experiences. It's so important to have that family time, but then to also incorporate those daily activities. Okay, so now we're going to talk about having a learning routine. Okay, some of you are going to be like, routine, No, we're not having a routine. We've had a routine all school year long. We're ditching the routine. Well, you can ditch it for a while, but then when you try to rebuild it and you get ready to go back to school in the fall, it's a little harder. I'm not saying that you can't let your child sleep in or that you can't sleep in. Go ahead and do that. But think about maybe 2 or 3 things that you can incorporate into your day that are routine. So whether it's having breakfast together and maybe you talk about the book that you read before you went to bed at night, or maybe you're going to do a little math practice. Maybe it's not at breakfast. Maybe it's at, maybe you come home for lunch from your job, or maybe you want to virtually visit with your children and, ask them about their day and give them a story problem or something like that. But think about different routines that you can incorporate into your summer schedule. And this is why this is going to kind of transition into my last point. When you consider tutoring as an option, I think sometimes tutoring has a really negative connotation for some people, like, oh, my kid isn't good enough, so they need to have tutoring. But many tutors, and I just had a conversation last night with Lee's up in Ottawa, Canada. She offers tutoring packages in between their breaks that are enrichment, and I do that as well. I provide enrichment services for students as well, because not every student that's getting tutoring is a struggling student. Some of them just they have this love of learning. So think about ways that whether it's a tutoring service or something that you purchase online. Maybe you want to get an education.com subscription for the summer, or maybe you want to do Prodigy or something like that, Prodigy Math, where the kids are logging in for, maybe a maximum of a half hour, and they're really working on those things. There are some free things out there. Khan Academy is free. I highly recommend Khan Academy. I use it in the classroom. I love it. It is so good. You can tailor what your child can be experiencing. And so if you want to do like the get ready for the next level, they can go in and they can do that. Now, Khan Academy, in my opinion, does a really good job of supporting math. It's getting better at the language. So for me, I'm speaking from the English point of view. It's getting better at supporting that. But really consider some things that your child can do that maybe you don't have to do. It's kind of on autopilot. So when I'm meeting with students during the summer, many times their parents aren't even there. The kids are literally logging into their virtual meeting, and we're having a half-hour meeting. I've met with several students that are 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. They just log in on their own. Their family's in the other room cooking, maybe an older brother or sister's at home. But I have one that's the oldest in the family, and she just logs in, and the little brother and sister are running around. Sometimes I see them in the background. They're like, "Hi, Cheryl." I'm like, "Hi, how are you?" And so it does work. And then, I'm a trusted resource. Parents have sat in on my lessons. They know exactly what I'm doing. They've seen the structure that I have. So they feel comfortable then letting their child take over that responsibility, and that keeps their routine going during the summer. So really consider tutoring as one of those things that you can do as well. And speaking of tutoring, I'll tell you a little bit more about my practices, especially if you're new here and you've never seen me before. So I'm going to just quickly show you my website. So if you're like, where do I find Cheryl? And I was looking at my links there. So that I have a brand new website. You could usually find me at midwesttutor.com. I am sunsetting my midwesttutor.com page. It's not that I don't love it. It's been wonderful for me. I've really enjoyed it. But my TutorBird website is doing exactly what I need it to do. It's introducing myself. And then at the bottom of the page, if you need services, you can go ahead and fill in the information. So let's just take a quick peek at where you can find that. I go through and talk about my services. And then this would be, hey, I want to sign up my child. And actually, I might be in the wrong view of this. So I might stop this here real quick and show you the other view. Nope, I am in the right view. That's good. Okay, just making sure that I was in the right view. So you can come down here and you can get signed up. And then if you're already a student, the child is on there, they can go straight to the portal. Now, that's not where they meet me. For some parents, the link is there, not for my students, but if other families are using it. My students actually meet me in their Ed Hub, which is a Google Classroom, but this is definitely where they can go to cancel an appointment or reschedule. Okay, another place that you can find me is at the Tutoring with Cheryl website. And I'm live right here, 5 things you can do to prevent. So here I am. And then you come down here and you can kind of see some of the services. And I just met with this is one of my students, and the parents are really, really happy. I want you to know that I do make a difference in the lives of my students. So make sure that you go check that out. This is my Tutoring with Cheryl Instagram page where you can come and follow me here. And then clearly, some of you might be seeing me on YouTube actually right now. And I was actually just updating all of my my banners. So there we go. That's where you can find me. I really hope, oops, I forgot to share that page with you. There we go. So hopefully I've answered some questions for you regarding summer tutoring, summer slide. What is it? What can you do to prevent it? Make sure that you check back often for updates. This live, I will classify under one of my Tutoring with Cheryl podcasts. I appreciate your time today. You guys make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.